you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion, it's gotta go.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Russell Glasser, and with me today, after a long hiatus, is my good friend Martin Wagner.
Yellow. It has
let's-
been a while. It's been a long time.
Yeah,
nice
it
to be
has.
back. It is.
Good to
though.
have you back. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Been missing it.
Today is Sunday, October 5th, 2014. We're a live call-in public access atheist television show based in Austin, Texas, dedicated to promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We're available through live streaming video at ustream.tv. The official Atheist Experience website is www.atheist-experience.com. You can provide feedback by commenting on the official show blog at freethoughtblogs.com/AXP. You can also email us at tv@atheist-community.org. If you like this show, you should also check out our related podcast, The Non-Prophets, which is currently airing on the first and third Wednesdays of every month. You can find a link at the Atheist Experience website, and the next episode recorded live will be on October 15th, 2014. If you are local to Austin, you can also sit in the audience for that one.
Like
just
these
as-
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Show off.
Yeah.
No, I totally milked it last week. Anyway, as always, the cast and crew of the Atheist Experience will be going to dinner after the show at El Arroyo, and that's at 1624 West 5th Street. We'll be arriving at around 6 p.m. How you been, man?
Oh, it's been an odd 2 months, but I'm doing all right now. Sort of kind of come back out of it a little bit. You know, family stuff that I haven't really, gotten into. I don't really. I post a lot of very personal stuff on social media, but not that kind of thing.
That's true.
But anyway, it's nice to sort of be over the hump with a lot of that. And so, I'm ready to get back to normal life for a change, very much so.
Great.
So,
You still got your film project in the works?
Which
or-
has been, again, on the back burner because of all of this. But,
Yeah.
so that I'm desperate to get back to and just finish it. I'm ready to have that done and out of my life and move on to the next one. And I did take a little time out to sort of clear my head. I did the Fantastic Fest Film Festival here at the end of September, which was great. Again, sort of got me back into, the flow of real life. But yeah, anyway, good to see you. Good to see everyone.
Yeah. So I know you don't have a topic, but I have something I'd like to get off my chest that has come up on Facebook recently, and it's come up a few times in emails to the show before, and I think people are often surprised at our position on this, so I think I ought to lay it out on the show. And I fear this might be an ill-advised conversation in that it will generate as much email as like 9/11 Truth and feminism and all the other list of topics that I have that will get us email blasted. This week on Real Time with Bill Maher, Sam Harris was a guest. And as you guys know, Sam Harris and Bill Maher are big into atheism. And I'm going to say flat out, I am kind of a fan of Bill Maher. I know he's kind of a jerk face sometimes. I know that he has that whole anti-vax history.
Yeah.
And I know that...
Which he did kind of backpedal from, too,
Right.
when he was shamed over it. So, there's that, I guess.
I know that his treatment of women isn't always like
Yeah.
perfectly on target.
There is that.
But regardless, he's a funny guy and he has good guests, and I enjoy listening to his show. And Sam Harris was on, and they got into a little back-patting session about Islam. Sam Harris said he was promoting his book, which is Waking Up, and he said, liberals have failed on the topic of theocracy. They'll criticize white theocracy, they'll criticize Christianity, they still get agitated over the abortion clinic bombing that happened in 1984. The crucial point of confusion is we have been sold this meme of Islamophobia, where every criticism of the doctrine of Islam is conflated with bigotry toward Muslims as people, which is intellectually ridiculous. So they go off on their little conversation about Islam, and then actor Ben Affleck, who's about to be Batman, jumps in and he says, I don't have the exact quote here, but he stopped them at some point and he said, whoa, man, you are being kind of racist. There was a bit of a shouting match, and on social media the next day, there was a whole bunch of like, haha, look at the dumb actor who doesn't know what he's talking about, and Sam and Bill Maher are totally right. And the very idea of Islamophobia is ridiculous, or alternately, it's admirable. And I got tagged in a post about this topic with the assumption that I was going to agree with that. And I don't. Now, it's true that religion is, I mean, first of all, people are saying that it's nonsense to say that dislike or fear of Islam can be racist because Islam isn't a race.
Yeah, that's actually the most common defense against, when people.
Right.
Yeah, you try to say, oh, you must be racist. No, I'm attacking the belief and not.
Yeah, and it's technically true that Islam is not a race, although a lot of times when you hear conversations about Islam, you hear, a lot of paranoia specifically about guys in foreign countries with beards, coming to kill us, and insults about the way they look and dress and stuff like that. So they do wind up being in common, but I think more importantly, religion is absolutely a set of beliefs, and it's culturally determined to a great extent. But race actually is also culturally determined to a great extent. My friend Guy P. Harrison, who's been on the show several times before, has actually written a book where he talks about the fact that the dividing lines between races and what races mean are a lot less objective and a lot more fuzzy than most people seem to think it is. But even though there's not really an objective definition of race, there absolutely is racism in the world. And it's not because people are basing their perception of people on some clearly defined and measured traits, but because they take mental shortcuts to sum up a person's entire character based on some hasty generalizations they make through superficial information. Now, we're the Atheist Experience. We do not like Islam, the religion. We make no bones about that, and I agree with Sam that it's awesome to directly ridicule beliefs that don't make any sense, that are not based on any evidence. We do it every single week.
Right.
Absolutely agree with that.
And a very common question that we get here on the show is, well, why do you only focus on Christians? Because there's all this other, there's Islam and there are all these other religions in the world, and we never hear you talk about. But of course we do, critique other religions as well, and we always have to keep pointing out that simply based on the fact that we're in America where Christianity is the majoritarian religion. That just happens to be what's on our radar most often.
We rarely get Muslim callers, but when we do, I specifically remember one call where this guy was promoting generic creationism, and then at the end he said, you should read the Quran, and I was like, the Quran? Seriously?
Yeah.
So we don't give any respect to Islam, the religion. But at the same time, I'm uncomfortable with the way that people like Sam Harris often seem to conflate outward appearances with the religion, and also conflate the fact that there have been a number of Muslim terrorist incidents with the idea that the stupid religion is the root and primary problem, because there are extremists and there are liberals in any religion. A few months ago, Tracy and I and Beth and another friend of ours, Ben, we all attended this talk at a mosque, which was Islam 101. And we were, a handful of white people, let's say, and we were surrounded by people who had very sincere beliefs in this, what I consider to be a nonsensical religion. But at no point in that talk did I feel threatened for my life or, find myself glancing at the exit or fearful for them. All religions are kind of ridiculous when you come right down to it. Islam is weird, okay? They believe a lot of weird things. And I mistrust fundamentalist Muslims a lot. I'm also ethnically and culturally Jewish to the extent that that means anything. And I've read a lot of stories about really cultish Jewish groups like that insulate their kids and do arranged marriages. And there was a recent story where some Orthodox Jews made this huge fuss on a plane because they had to sit next to a woman.
Yeah, I did see something like that, and that sort of thing just makes you think, what?
Yeah.
I mean, people willingly, allow themselves to kind of be part of these closed in-groups. And I don't know if it's just sort of a general xenophobia or just this desire. But something about being part of this in-group allows you to convince yourself of a sense of superiority,
right?
Or what have you. But just really briefly, I can even kind of go you one better than going to the Islam 101 meeting thing. When I was a little boy and my dad was in the oil business, we lived in the Middle East for 3 years. I lived in Dubai. Before Dubai was like the Vegas of the Middle East. It was just kind of a two-camel town, and it was reasonably developed. To date, I cannot recall ever interacting with or meeting or spending time with, even as a small child, a nicer, more easygoing, friendlier, more helpful, more pro-free enterprise, pro-the American way, a group of people than all of those Arabs and all of those Muslims that we knew living in Dubai. We got to know the Sheikh and his sons, and then just the people who worked with my dad and worked for them. Awesome people, absolutely wonderful folks. I mean, I'd trust them with anything in a minute. But this was 40 years ago, right? I just aged myself. But this, and certainly the climate, the global climate has changed in that time. What has changed? Well, probably lots of bad foreign policy on our part, maybe.
And I don't want to, I do want to blame some of the foreign policy. I also want to blame religious fundamentalism.
Yeah,
and I want to say that, you don't fly planes into buildings if you don't think that that some kind of imaginary paradise is awaiting you on the other end.
Correct, but I mean, is it the case that that a great many Muslims over the last several decades have been radicalized, not only by these madrasas and by these teachers, in order to wage jihad? Of course it's true. This is happening. Are there Quranic passages that they can point to and justify this violence with?
Yes, there are. But there are a lot of passages in the Bible and the Torah that you can also use to justify violence.
So you can point to those things, those realities about the situation, and cast a critical eye upon that. But to say that all Islams are X and all Islams are Muslims, act and behave this way, and this is just what it is, and this is what these people are like, and we must be. When it goes from a criticism of the belief system and the ideologies and the deeds of these groups into just blanket xenophobia, you have now crossed a line, and that's probably where accusations of racism come in.
Yeah,
because to be fair, a religion like Islam and Judaism to a certain degree, the majority of the people in those faiths probably belong to a particular ethnic group, and so that is why sometimes there's perhaps racism informing anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, and I mean, racism and other forms of xenophobia are really just this all too human, I mean, you know, they're not based on something objective. They're just really part of this all too human characteristic of defining an in-group and an out-group and dehumanizing the out-group. And it doesn't serve us in sort of the complex modern world that we have to navigate. If you exhibit blind hatred towards people on top of dismissing and ridiculing their clearly incorrect, poorly informed beliefs.
Right.
I mean, which, you know, I'm not singling out Islam for that. Again, I do that with every single religion every single week right here. And Sam Harris isn't exempt from what I do consider some level of Islamophobia. I mean, a couple of years ago, he was writing posts about what a good idea it is to continue profiling people based on the way they look, to be singled out for airport security every single time. And he actually had this ongoing online debate with a security expert who was sitting there telling him he was wrong.
Yeah, like this doesn't actually work the way you say it does.
Right.
And then, you know.
Or sometimes we get emails from like paranoid Europeans who are outraged that their local grocery store has started offering halal-friendly selections. And I'm like, I'm supposed to care about this? Why?
Yeah.
I mean,
like, are they, you know, frog marching you over to that section and like forcing you at gunpoint to buy that stuff?
Right. If you do not want halal stuff, don't shop there.
Yeah. Or just don't buy the halal stuff, right? It's like you don't have to buy that gluten-free crap just because supermarkets are full of it. It's like, it's gluten-free. I don't have celiac disease, so I'm cool. Thank you.
Right. Now,
Give me the freaking gluten.
Yeah.
Give me all the gluten.
Gluten is delicious.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is the fact that somebody subscribes to one outdated book and not a different outdated book doesn't automatically make them a killer, okay?
Yeah.
All right.
So
ready
there's
for
that.
calls?
Yeah. Let's do this.
Christian in Cedar Park, right in our hometown. Did we just talk to you recently?
Yeah, I called in last week, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Nice to talk to you again.
Hey, good to talk to you. I've been thinking that for me, that religion supplies something that I feel is kind of essential that I can't get anywhere else.
Okay,
and
what is it?
And I also relate to, although I'm a Christian, I relate to other religions, and I get, it's almost like I get some kind of satisfaction from observing there, or even sometimes participating in what they do.
So would that include Islam? I'm just curious, since we just finished talking about it.
It would, yeah. Like I relate to certain aspects of Islam, like their devotion and their seriousness about their religion, definitely.
Okay.
Okay.
So what is that thing?
I don't know what it is, but I mean, it's obviously it's very prevalent around the planet.
Well, I mean, you said there's a thing that you consider essential that religion provides you that nothing else does, and so what would that be?
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying, though. I'm not sure exactly what you call it. I just know that I'm drawn to participate in religion, and when I participate in it, I feel fulfilled. If I go too long without doing it, I feel a lack, and I want to go back to it. Mm-hmm. And I relate to people people's stories of people who have found religion, who weren't religious, and what it is that they say drew them into it. And I relate to people, what they say about why it's fulfilling to them, whether it's prayer or being in rituals or services or whatever it is.
Well, Christian, I mean, I haven't lived your experience, but on the other hand, you haven't lived mine.
Sure.
So do you think that you could tell me that there is absolutely some sort of fulfillment or happiness that I'm missing out in my life because I don't have this religious thing of yours?
Well, I have at least one associate, a friend, who does not listen to music.
Okay.
Meaning he doesn't own any music, and he doesn't have any groups or types that he buys music that he likes or anything like that.
Sure.
I would say it's something close to that. I would say either, I'm not saying that there's something wrong with him, although I'm willing to bet that he could find a whole other type of fulfillment if he made more of an effort with music. But even if that is not true, even if he's just different to the extent that he doesn't need it or, it doesn't do anything for him. I still think that it's a important, that doesn't change that music is a very important, and I would say an essential part of our experience.
Yeah, but I mean, it's interesting you bring up that example because I do recall reading something not long ago about the way in which there are some people out there who just, whatever it is in our brains that hears the music and then translates that into kind of emotional experiences that are personal to us. And there are some people who just don't have that module in their heads. And so, so while to us, if we didn't have, if we're music lovers and we didn't have the music, that would be this terrible, hole in our existence. For those people, it's not, it's just not something that they miss because they didn't, you can't miss what you never really had in the first place. Now, whether or not it's just, there's something wrong with them or just a case of, they're being wired differently. Who knows? But but I want to get back to just sort of the way you described, what it is you get out of religion, and I can certainly understand that sense. One thing that I think religion is very successful at has been, for example, fostering a sense of community among people. It's bringing groups of folks together, and that's been something that, indeed, I think there are certain people in the atheist community who are kind of adopting that kind of blueprint. There are two groups of atheists basically. There are people who are lifelong, and but then there I think is a much larger group, and those would be people who were raised religious and were brought up in a church environment, but who have since lost their faith. And given up on religion. But one thing that you may kind of miss is, but I really kind of enjoy going to church and meeting all those folks. So now what's happened is that those folks are finding a lot of appeal in what they're calling Sunday assemblies, where you just where people are getting together and just hanging out in something that is kind of follows the church model, but it's secular. So there is something to be said about, for example, that sense of belonging and community. But something else you described in terms about, in terms of, well, here's something that's special to me. When I miss it, I really miss it. When I come back to it, I feel that renewed sense of fulfillment. I can think of a great many things that generate those feelings in me, right? Whether it's, there's, like I mentioned, there's an annual film festival that I go to that always kind of feels like coming home. There are just hobbies that I'm part of that are, even if it's just things in my spare time. When I have the chance to just sit down and do those things, just this sense of peace, washes over me, and I feel great. So I think that there are lots of ways to get that general sense. It may not be, for example, my sense of fulfillment from the things I like might not entirely map to the kind of fulfillment you feel when you partake in your religion, but it's still there. It can be experienced by different people in different ways. Okay,
well, let me say something real quick, and partly to answer what Russell's first saying about, can you tell me that I'm missing out on something, or et cetera. Well, first of all, briefly, I understand what you're saying about those gatherings of people, and you have things that you do, and if you enjoy them, then you're going to miss them later. And I understand that, and I'm taking all that into account when I say that for religion, I mean, I have things that I'm involved in, social things. I have hobbies and interests, and I have a circle of friends that are religious and not religious and atheists, etc. But I'm not talking about getting together with people. I'm talking about things that are more exclusive to religion, like the idea of something that's sacred, reverence, that kind of thing.
Yeah, on the flip side, I mean, I'm one of those people who's never been religious, so if there's something that I'm missing, then I haven't experienced it. But
sure.
I have talked to a number of people who used to be religious and are now atheists, and by the same token, they have told me that there was a really exciting shift in their minds when they abandoned the idea of God. That a lot of them were like, really, I don't have to live by the dictates of some absolute rules anymore, and all of a sudden the things that have been true, I've assumed that it were true all my life. I'm now free to dismiss and actually get into things like science and seriously trust the kinds of answers that actual reason and evidence lead me to.
I think it all comes down to.
I really wanted to say, I had something I wanted to say about that. So you said that you had not had that experience.
True.
Okay. And what I'm saying is that I think that if you did have that experience, and I also relate to what you're saying about people getting the sense of fulfillment from getting away from religion. And you're talking about people not being able to be interested in science, but they're considered it goes against their religion,
Right.
or people, the idea of being free of the dictates of whatever. I can relate to that too, and I can understand how there would be fulfillment in that in a completely different way. But when I say religion, I'm saying that if I were to able to show you what that experience is like that you have not had, and if I were able to go about it in such a way as to introduce you, I think sometimes like some of these ideas, they obviously take hold easier on younger people and people whose outlooks have not been completely formed. Yeah, they do.
Give me the child
and
for 7
as
years,
do a
I'll
lot
give
of
you
our
the man.
experiences as human beings, like learning language and that kind of thing. And,
Right. I mean, we would refer to that as indoctrination.
yeah, and it is indoctrination. But I think that there's things about it that are good, and I think that yes, I do think I can confidently tell you that if you could get the full experience, I think that you would think that you were missing something.
Well, let me
well,
let me go ahead and address this because, like I said, Russell, is a lifelong, but I was someone who grew up in church,
Okay.
and I'll be the first to tell you that I have pretty much no bad or negative memories of that experience. I'm for the most part, my memories of those years, pretty much I think it went up to when I was maybe about 14-ish. Adolescence, pretty much all, I remember a lot of those days fondly. I remember all the things we used to do with the youth group, and choir was kind of cheesy, but there was still the youth activities that took place in the rec room at the church and all of this, and I liked our church. It was a cool place, and so yeah, I have nothing but generally positive memories of those years. But the enjoyment that I recall from the various things that I did when I was a church-going youth and all those good memories, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to me ultimately take a back seat to the decision I made that it mattered to me whether or not what I believed was actually true.
Sure.
And now I will admit that there were some elements, this would have been at the time when like the moral majority was coming to the rise, and so there were some kind of factions in like American religious fundamentalism that were coming to the fore in the Reagan years, and so that probably informed a lot of my, the distaste that I started feeling for Christianity, which again probably ushered me along the path to abandoning the whole thing. But it wasn't really that strong because I knew that it was still like, yeah, but there's cool people and our church is great, and I like the basketball court and all that. So it really came down to, yes, I have all these fond memories. I remember some people who were really great, good times. But at the end of the day, none of that has anything to do with, do I really believe that what is being preached to me from the pulpit, what the message of this religion is? Do I believe any of that's true? Do I believe there's a God? And at the end of the day, I have to say, well, no, I really don't. And so this isn't for me. Although I knew that there were good bits and there's stuff that I recall very fondly, it was ultimately I had to kind of go a different way. And
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I just wanted to say that, it doesn't take hold of everybody, and that's true. And if there's not enough of something you're getting from it to say, well, I'm going to put these doubts aside for now, then you're not getting enough of that from it. But I would like to say that I think that people should take into account when they're considering it from an intellectual perspective that the fact that religion has spontaneously emerged in culture so often, and it's from my understanding pretty much almost to every example in just about every culture.
That's a little bit of an overgeneralization, since the kind of religion that you're talking about has very little to do with, let's say, Chinese ancestor worship.
I don't think it does at all. I think that it's very much related.
Well,
you want to claim credit for every single thing, every single set of superstitions being identical.
No, I think
it's superstition.
There may be, to whatever degree there's such a thing as, natural religion where people tend to gravitate towards these ideas. I don't know that I'm entirely convinced by that. The fact is, whether or not there is any sort of spontaneous way in which a religion arises initially in a culture. The fact is that the religions that we have today are the result of centuries of politics and wrangling and wars and various conflicts and
What about tribal religions that we
this
observe?
institutionalization. Well, still, I mean, my question at the end of the day with tribal religions would be, in a case like this, are these simply people who are ignorant of the actual facts of the world and looking at what they see and just interpreting it through the limited knowledge that they do have? And there's no mystery
and
in
I think,
that.
and the answer is right there. The answer is, well, if they were to have more education and more awareness and see the whole world, would they stop being religious? And the answer is, for most people, clearly no. They keep being religious.
Well, it's for many people it's no, but at the same time, look at what has happened to religion in the face of all of this increase of knowledge. People have not necessarily given up the religion because, again, to many of them there is this kind of emotional connection that's important. But look, for example, at the way Christianity has changed as scientific knowledge down the centuries has increased. Christianity has simply found ways to absorb a scientific discovery, or it just comes out and fights it and resists it tooth and nail. For example, the case with the current evolution battle. But then later on you have the Catholic Church 500 years after the fact apologizing
300.
for 300
Well,
whatever, apologizing for what they did to to Galileo.
Sure.
But
And that adaptability is in its favor, I would say.
well, I don't know that it's really adaptability because I think I'm not entirely convinced that the church's apology was motivated by this grand revelation that there's a willingness to admit that the church was wrong and Galileo was right.
The fact that 300 years later they admitted error doesn't imply that they were adaptable. It implies that they were in error. And sooner or later, it was inevitable that they could continue maintaining these preposterous beliefs without becoming basically a laughing stock. I mean,
But it is an adaptation. That is an adaptation.
Eventually, but I mean, another thing that often happens to religions is they just die out. I mean, you don't see a lot of believers in the Greek pantheon anymore. Even though
Sweden,
it seems like you would say that that's all of the same cloth as Christianity.
I think it's very similar. But I think in Sweden, where atheism
I think
has
it's
had a very
similar
good
too.
run, in Sweden, the majority of the people believe in some type of transcendental force reality. I mean, according to the Wikipedia
I'm not
survey.
sure that's true.
Yeah.
Well, it's been they have this thing they always use, like on Wikipedia, whenever you read about a country, they always have religious beliefs, and there's a specific survey they
I'm
use.
pretty sure Sweden is like one of the most
Yeah,
secular
pretty
countries
secular.
in the world.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Sweden
They
is
are
starting-
one of the most secular countries. That's that's the whole point of what I'm saying.
And-
Well,
That's your golden boy right there of secularism, and you still have the majority of the people. You can look it up right now. Somebody in the studio to look it up. The majority of the people believe in some type of transcendental guiding force or whatever.
Okay,
it won't go away.
but
It
you're
doesn't seem to want to go away.
but I mean, you're basically throwing a textbook example. I mean, even if that's true, it's an example of an appeal to popularity, which is a common fallacy. I mean, the fact that a lot of people believe something does not in itself make it correct, right?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not appealing to popularity, and I'm not saying that makes it correct. I'm not even implying that it may be correct. I'm saying the fact that it won't go away shows you how much of a intrinsic thing it is and how it fulfills a need.
But the fact that it's intrinsic, does that make it good? I mean, let's say that it is
That's another issue.
Let's say, for example, that it is a unique experience that I will never have because I'm not religious. There are a lot of other things I don't do. I am not a regular drug user. I've never taken LSD. And a lot of people have told me that the experience of taking LSD is unlike anything else they've experienced before. But
Well,
that
I'll
doesn't.
tell you that as well.
Yeah.
I'll second
Okay.
that.
yes.
But does that mean that I should fill in that void in my life by taking a lot of LSD?
If you have any courage, you probably would.
Okay. I do not agree with that.
Yeah, no, I can't.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, see, this is where I think the difference in just our general approach is coming to the fore. It all comes down to whether or not, it's Matt's famous quote. In life I would prefer to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. You're never going to be 100% on your scorecard for that, but you can do your best. And I think that it all came down to the fact that those of us, at least here, who identify as atheists, decided at a certain point that it really, really did matter whether or not what we believed was actually true. Not whether it just gave us, the warm fuzzies or some kind of fulfillment. It really did matter whether it was true, or at least that it had been proved, or at least backed up with enough evidence that we felt comfortable accepting it into our, map of the world, as in terms of what we believe about how the world works.
But does everything that you encounter have to breach that brick wall of a litmus test before you can experience it and engage in it?
Do I want to make sure that something that if somebody presents me with an idea, are you asking me, do I want to make sure that there is any validity to that idea before I accept it? Yes.
I'm just saying.
Me too.
Yeah. No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, do you have to make that the essential and first question before you can start getting deeper into it and experiencing it?
Yes.
Yes. Is something true versus is it not true? Is it more likely to be true than otherwise? Yes.
Because there are a whole lot of things that people believe in the world.
Continue to answer it. You can keep that question there and continue to address it and go back to it.
Yeah, but there are lots and lots of things to believe and experience in the world, and I think that I'm not running out of things by filtering out stuff that is probably fake.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
but I didn't say anything about anything being. I didn't say anything about.
Well, yeah, because I'm getting the impression that you don't care that much about whether it's got validity, but we do. That is a primal.
That's the separator between us here.
Well, do you have a problem with children? Do you have a problem with children getting into a story and playing with the idea that maybe it's real when it's make believe?
Yeah, but I know people in the science fiction and comics world who do cosplay. They enjoy
about adults.
They enjoy doing it, but they understand it's make believe.
Yes, of course. I'm not talking about adults. I'm talking about when you read a 4-year-old a fairy tale. There's an age at which, as children get older, the line is blurred.
That's true, but by the time my son was 4 years old, I was already doing exercises with him to distinguish between fantasy and reality. I'm sorry you think so.
Well, yeah, because it's the point about you're bringing up children, but the point is, by the time someone is an adult, we do expect them to have given that up.
Over it.
Yes, we do expect them to have stopped believing in Santa.
I'm not saying to be like a child. That's not what I'm saying.
Well, then why bring your kids up then? I mean, yes, there's a certain point in childhood.
Well, I mean, it's like if you go out and you start asking yourself, you go out to 6th Street or you go out with your friends and you start asking yourself, if you keep asking yourself every 5 seconds, am I having a good time? Is this a good time? Am I having a good time? Can I rationally say that this is there a logical fallacy in my reason for why this is a good
That's apples and oranges, man. That's
I don't see why I would need to constantly poll myself on something that I've already acknowledged. This is fun, and I've had experiences with fun before.
Well, but I'm saying you don't. In other words, when you're trying to decide, I didn't bring in any supernatural ideas about religion.
But
I'm saying,
but that's what religion is.
Yeah, religion is supernaturalism.
I'm
Christianity.
Not saying that religions don't have supernatural elements.
They're primarily supernatural evidence. That's what makes them religion.
This part of the discussion.
Yeah, but you have to understand that to us, that's the aspect of it that we want to address. We care about whether or not the religions make truth claims about the world.
I care about whether it's true as well.
Yes.
That's important to me as well.
Wait a minute, you just chided us for considering that to be an important element.
Yeah, you said it was horrible.
So why suddenly it's important?
I'm just saying to take a second. I'm saying in various ways of approaching an issue, that one way that you can have a discussion about religion is to not get into the supernatural aspect of it at first. I'm talking about other aspects of it that I'm saying are fulfilling without the supernatural aspect.
But yes, we acknowledge that church socials are fun.
No, not
and
social.
things like
I'm
that.
talking about rituals. I'm talking about having ideas about things that are sacred. I'm talking about moral absolutes. I'm talking about not just people getting together.
And those are all ideas that we would look at and say, are they valid, are they true, or are they not? We would, those are all things that religions, we don't ignore them.
Caught up in it? What if you were to get caught up in it?
Well,
that doesn't make it valuable.
Yeah,
and I
that
think
doesn't-
that
it doesn't
I think
make it valuable?
Christian,
No.
I think we've been going
Okay,
in
so
circles.
you find
Christian,
something that you're
hey,
passionate
Christian,
about.
Christian.
You find something
I
that you're
think
passionate
okay.
getting caught up in something
Call back
doesn't
next
mean
week.
that you have discovered truth. It just means
Right.
that you have become fanatical. Okay, and devotion and the level of intensity that you believe something does not make the belief true. Getting caught up in something, I would say, is a red flag.
Absolutely.
That's an app, so yeah.
Okay.
Says here, 45% of Swedes answered, quote, they believe there is some sort of spirit or life force. But that's
Well,
about,
that's fewer than half.
yeah,
But anyway,
yeah.
uh,
That's what Wikipedia tells me.
Angel
But again,
in New
doesn't
York.
matter. Hi, thank you for waiting very patiently.
Thank you very much. Hi.
Hi.
So I wanted to know your stance about a comment that my cousin said pretty recently. This is what she said on Facebook. My son brought home a book from school which has information about sharks and other sea creatures which he loves so much. I opened the book to the first page, and in that first page there's a sentence, and it reads, "We are directly descended from the fish that first walked on land." Shaking my head. Really? If only I could only keep books like this out of his reach. Now, keep in mind that her son is 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to know what your stance on this is and how you guys feel about enforcing your religion or your beliefs on your child.
Well, I think she's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, my first comment is, ha ha.
Yeah. But it is a real hazard to this kid, I think, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry that the school is not going out of their way to coddle her her incorrect belief, but we do have a responsibility to educate our kids and bring them up with the best scientifically accurate information that is known right now. And it doesn't serve anyone to sort of tiptoe around these people's religious beliefs and not teach them that, to pick a more extreme example, teach in school that the Earth is only 6,000 years old and that there was a literal pair of people walking around them at the beginning, or that there was actually a global flood at any point when there's absolutely no archaeological evidence of that whatsoever.
And that this God who supposedly created the entire universe and all the worlds in it through an act of will still somehow needed a rib to make a woman. I mean,
yeah.
so
I mean,
they needed a story editor on that part of Genesis.
I
think.
feel sad for this kid, and I feel like the kid is in for a lot of conflict. As was it a boy or a girl?
It's a boy.
Yeah,
nephew.
as he grows up, he's gonna have this push and pull all the time, and you know, it's not uncommon for fundamentalists to actually pull their kids out of school and try to teach them everything themselves, which I think is often disastrous to their level of actual knowledge in the end.
You know, and you would think, I have this zero tolerance policy towards, you know, inflicting, you know, or prohibiting kids from, you know, it's the worst thing you can do to a kid is just like prohibit
Hide
them.
stuff.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so my solution to, you know, any parent who was like, oh, I must take away the evil evolution book would just be to like, you know, psst, kid, here's more evolution books. You know, if you know, if the religion really were this great truth, and there's another thing I wanted to kind of get on Christian about, which is sort of like, you know, with all this adaptability that goes on, simply so, you know, because religions need to remain relevant, suddenly this whole idea that there's an absolute truth that they are promoting pretty much goes out the window, right? But, you know, it does not speak well, you know, to the dedication and the faith that these people claim that they have, that they must, you know, run in terror, you know, from a challenge like this. You know, and sure, certainly a lot of creationists have not done that. They have attempted to mount their own little pseudoscientific counter to evolution. But at the end of the day, you know, this is, you know, the data is in the strata, and this is where, you know, the evidence is with us. And so it seems like, you know, like Russell, you talked about how, you know, you went through this whole exercise with Ben about like,
right.
you know, here is how we distinguish what's true from what's not true, and you know, and you went into.
I considered that one of the most important lessons I ever taught him.
Yeah, this whole depressing exercise in building thinking skills. Yeah, actual thinking skills. How depressing. Yeah, so the fact that she is not willing to do that with her son, and if she does that and he sees here both of these different accounts and he is still able to decide that Christianity offers the correct answer to biodiversity, then he's done that through that thought process. But I think she knows deep down that that would not be the conclusion he'd reach. So she has kind of essentially validated, and she's handed evolution the win there by stealing the book away, because she has essentially admitted my religious beliefs that I want to raise my child up in cannot stand up to to the first sentence in this children's school book. And so, I mean, that's pretty much a concession on her part. And so,
if and when the school ever sent home a book with information that I fundamentally disagreed with, my first reaction would not be to take the book away. I would sit down and read it with him, and then I would say, look, this is wrong and here's why. And you need to be aware of this thing the school's trying to push on you.
Here is the accurate information. Here are the sources where that accurate information comes from. Let's look at both of these.
Because that's the only way that you truly learn to insulate yourself from bad ideas. Because someday my kid is going to be a grown-up and he's not going to have me pulling everything out of his hands that doesn't agree with my preconceptions.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and it also upsets me that he's like really interested into science. He's only 5 years old, and so he wants to be a paleontologist, and so
he's not going to be a paleontologist if he rejects evolution.
Yeah, that's and the funny thing is his mom does not believe in dinosaurs because they were not mentioned in the Bible.
Oh, Lord.
So she's,
That's really sad.
Yeah, so it's really upsetting that, in the future, let's say if he does become a paleontologist, he'll kind of be of disapproval from his mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, lots of kids have gone through that, and I think it's your job now to be the supportive adult in his life.
Yeah, but again, you cannot, no parent can be that protective forever.
Yeah.
And
that's when we get them.
Yeah. And so, it's just kind of, it's like the dad's porn mags. The kids will find them if they're in the house. The kids will freaking find them, right? So the more you try to shield from, it's me, Russell. Come on.
Okay.
So hiding, like Russell said, hiding something from a child is the surest way to make them want that thing even more, right? I mean, you want what you can't have, and if something is, mom, it's like, mom's worried about this. So that is just going to kick in that rebellious streak. So she's not really doing herself any favors.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And
thanks.
one of the arguments that I actually used for her, why dinosaurs never existed because they were never in the Bible. I was like, well, you have a cat in your home, right? Cats weren't mentioned in the Bible, were they? So you still have a cat in your home. He obviously still exists.
Pizza's not in the Bible.
Cars aren't in the Bible. The internet's not in the Bible.
Yeah.
They all still exist.
Yep.
Bible
Okay.
or not.
Well, thank you, Angel.
Yep.
We went quite a long time with Christian, so we want to get a couple more calls in.
Yeah. Thanks very
Of
much for
course.
calling.
Okay,
Thank you
guys
so
very
much.
Bye.
Bye.
Dave in Calgary.
Hi, guys.
Thank you
Hi,
for
Dave.
waiting.
Yeah, no problem. It was almost like we were listening to the, forgive the pun here, the Christian Experience.
Yes.
For the first 35 minutes of the show.
Well, that's what that's what our
you
callers
know,
like. Get the Christians on. That's what they want to hear.
Some viewers would like us to hang up on annoying people as quickly as possible, and some really want the meaty discussion with religious people. So it's always kind of a balance.
Oh, they're schizophrenic, really. When you think about it, I mean, it's sort of like they demand. It's like we want more Christians to call the show. Get more Christians on, and then they call the show, and then they're like immediately hang up on this moron. He's stupid. We can't please you.
Right.
Well,
Anyway.
actually,
So high maintenance.
I want to thank Christian to a certain extent because it was a good segue into something that I wanted to bring up as an atheist myself.
Uh-huh.
I mean, would you guys go so far as agreeing with me that even though we don't have proof and evidence and it can't be measured that people of faith are experiencing something emotionally, that there must be some truth to that. There's something there that they're experiencing emotionally, wherever that's coming from.
I am willing to accept that they are experiencing something of a different nature emotionally than I have experienced. Just like I'm willing to accept that that people on LSD experience something different from what I have experienced.
And this is actually why I wanted to thank Christian for what he was talking about, because in the beginning, and I'm actually I work in the music industry myself, and so he started talking about music, and that was actually exactly the analogy I was going to bring up, along with kind of the morality, the origins of morality, because that's one of the discussions I get into quite a bit with people in that are of faith here in Calgary, and the whole discussion is about, well, okay, and you guys have heard it a million times, if we didn't have the Bible, then where would our morality come from? And I'm just simply going, okay, is it really that complicated to figure out that a combination of science and, along with emotion, and also the ability to actually feel, it can create its own morality? Like if I know, as an example, if I know that the science proves that when I push my friend in front of a train, and that train hits my friend and he's going to die, that I'm going to feel a sense of loss or sorrow from that. So therefore, I'm going to develop a morality that says, maybe I shouldn't be pushing people in front of trains.
The way that I usually approach the morality question, I recently gave a talk in Abilene, Texas, which I've got the complete transcript of on the blog, so you can see a much longer version of this if you look on freethoughtblogs.com/AXP for a recent really long post I wrote.
Actually, I want to touch on that point as well, so remind me.
Okay. But the best defense here is a good offense, because the morality in the Bible is terrible.
Yes, I understand that.
It's full of stuff that very objectively modern people would see as kind of monstrous. I use the example of the story of Jephthah, which you can read through when you get there, about this guy who vowed to sacrifice the first thing that walked through his door, and then it was his daughter, and he did it anyway because you can't break a vow to God, and that's presented as if it was some kind of admirable thing in the Bible. The Bible is full of terrible stuff like that, and as soon as you bring up something like this, people of faith will hem and haw and say, well, it was just a metaphor, and you can't take that seriously, and
just
maybe
the Old
the lesson
Testament,
was
just the
different.
Old Testament,
right?
Yeah, but that's exactly my point, Russell. That's my point, though, is that, sorry to interrupt you, but just let me get this out, because I just want to make a point to what you're saying here, which is that's exactly the problem with a good defense is a good offense. It still doesn't present itself as a good offense if they're not willing to listen to the reasoning behind that. They're going to hum and haw.
What I'm saying is that as soon as they start tap dancing around this morality presented in the Bible, the first thing I would say to them is, oh, you don't get your morality from the Bible either, because clearly the fact that this was presented as a noble thing in the Bible is not in itself enough to make you think it's good. That means that you have some other standard than what's written in this ancient book, and you feel free, as you should, to reject this terrible stuff when it suits, when it doesn't fit itself in your socially defined sense of right and wrong.
Yeah,
you see what I mean?
That's precisely
That's
precisely the point. I mean, when you have you have the claim that there are moral absolutes, and the Bible provides these, and then the instant you can provide one morally objectionable thing in the Bible that causes the believer to do that tap dance in defense, then I think Russell sort of made the point very clear.
That's what you and I see as an atheist.
There are two.
They're not understanding it.
There are two basic factors to look into, and morality is not complicated. But there are two things that religion, particularly Abrahamic religion, has gone out of its way to say that human beings are incapable of, that we are, of course, perfectly capable of, and they're the only things that we need to apply to moral situations, and those are reason and empathy. Empathy is known to be just a natural human condition. There have been, studies done with children showing that, very small children are naturally empathetic. They have a desire to be helpful to others. So this is it's part of human nature. And then there's also the reasoning aspect. You can look at a situation and say, this is obviously not something that I would enjoy if I were on the receiving end of it. Therefore, I should not behave in this way to another person. So it's not rocket science, It's a very simple.
My point too. However,
but any sort of biblical moral precept that a believer is presented with, you immediately need to ask them, yes, but how do you know that's moral? I mean, you see it written in the Bible. You say that the Bible is a moral source, and therefore this precept is moral. But really, how did you arrive at that conclusion? Because no matter what you are reading in the Bible, you still have to determine, yes, in fact, this thing that God says to do is a correct moral precept. It is not immoral. It is, in fact, moral. How do you arrive at that? And they still have to come to that judgment themselves.
So
and if they're not doing that, if they're
the experience that I had was with a friend of mine who is a believer, and we've had many, many debates over it, and I finally actually had him come over to, we'll say, my side of thinking when I presented this argument, and this was what I was saying to you guys is that. You can say, you can present the arguments you're presenting right now about, well, just look at the Bible and the immoral lessons that are taught in the Bible. And of course, that should be proof enough that you do not get your morality from the Bible. But they don't listen to that. They tiptoe around it. They tap dance around it. That's exactly what you said. The breakthrough that I had with my friend was when I went back to this example of, well, let's just for argument's sake, let's say in the beginning of time there were cavemen, and when cavemen did exist, there was the not the understanding of science, but there was still the emotion that was built inside of us from the beginning of time that said that when I do something like I throw my caveman friend off of a cliff and he dies, that I feel some sort of sorrow. So then I understand the science of what happens when I throw him off the cliff, and I understand the emotions that go along with that. And he was going, okay, yeah, I can see how those two things combined, along with being capable of feeling hot, cold, touch, pain, all those kind of things. He understood now where morality possibly could be derived from if it wasn't from text in the Bible.
Right.
So once
we're almost out of time. You're going to need to wrap this up, I'm afraid.
I know. That's why I'm trying to hurry here. Yeah. And so based on that, I then started to say, well, we all agree that there are emotions like love, right? But they can't be measured.
No, seriously, like 20 seconds.
Okay.
Okay.
Call back next week because this is really fascinating, and we appreciate it though very much.
And we'll talk to you again about it.
And we're sorry we didn't get around to the other guys on holding online.
Right, but after show, and thanks, Martin. Always a pleasure.
Yes, good to be back, everyone.
Welcome back.
Months
and
and
bye.
months and months
See you at
away.
Threadgills.
Bye. El Arroyo.
El Arroyo.
Yeah.
Oh.